Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Pleasure to be joined here today by Anthony Zorzetto. Anthony, thank you very much for being here, man. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, man. Likewise.
Can you give us a quick introduction as to who you are and what it is that you do? And through that, then we'll get into your story and a little bit more of the meat and potatoes of the episode.
Yeah, sounds good, man. So first and foremost, I'm a dad. That's the thing I'm most proud about. Two beautiful kids. I got a 7-year-old boy and a 1-year-old daughter. Besides that, also a husband and a sobriety coach. So I work with men specifically and exclusively to help them get sober. I do it outside of traditional ways of sobriety, such as NA, CA, or AA. Although that is basically a prerequisite. I ask that people try it because it is free and available, and it works. Like, works for millions of people. But I've found this niche where it doesn't sit with everyone. There's a lot of people in my program that are professional athletes, so they want to keep complete anonymous and just do the one-on-one style. So that's what I do. I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm avid workaholic. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it, man. But yeah, like I said, the number one thing is just being a dad. That's my favorite part of my life, honestly.
I can imagine so. I can imagine as we, dive further into your story and all the things that you do, how transformative that must have been for you and for many other guys and for many, I don't have children yet, but you hear people talk about, the day that my son or daughter was born, then that second everything changed. And I'm sure that a big part of sobriety and addiction is also having some type of purpose greater than yourself, and that can be many things, obviously, but a child can be probably one of the most powerful ones. So I'm glad that you led with that, and we'll talk about how that's part of your story. Yeah. One way that I want to start this off to help myself and kind of bridge the gap a little bit with some fitness stuff that squeaks into this is, how do we define what an addiction is? And if you can, I'd like you to answer this in the framework of the way that people say that, sugar is addicting. It's as addicting as cocaine. And I don't know the actual science of that. I've had sugar before. I've never, done illegal things to get another hit of sugar. And so I think that that's a questionable, comparison, but if you can help us define what addiction actually is, and then we can go from there.
Sure. Great question, man. So addiction to me is the inability to stop doing something that is harming you, even when you know it's harming you. And as well, it's something that takes up all of your bandwidth. So like you said, with sugar, there's a lot of people who struggle with, they get a donut every single day, right? But they're not robbing somebody for donuts. They're not missing work for donuts. They're not pulling their kids out of daycare so that they can take the money that they would have used for daycare for donuts. Addiction is something that is uncontrollable in the moment, and you will put in front of absolutely everything, even though it's something that is extremely obvious that you shouldn't put in front of, like your kids or your family, your wife, your job, your health, your mental health, your metabolic health. That's addiction. When you have no chance, it feels like, to quit something that is harming you. That's a real addiction. The whole I'm addicted to sugar, or the biggest one that quite frankly pisses me off is people saying that, you've traded one addiction for another, meaning you've quit cocaine, crack, alcohol, heroin, any sort of narcotic for jiu-jitsu or the gym. It's like, yo, fucker, I don't miss work to go to jiu-jitsu. I don't miss work to go to the gym. I'm not selling my car so that I could pay for my membership at Good Life. That addiction gets thrown around very loosely and cavalier, and it's to the point where it's kind of just funny to me now, and it's silly. And when people say that, I honestly say, like, God bless you. You don't actually know what a real addiction is, and I'm happy that you don't know, because it's hell. So go ahead and throw that around, but I'd prefer you use something different than a different word than addiction, because that's not addiction.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think one that comes up in a lot of different aspects, and certainly in political climates and things we don't need to necessarily talk about. But people throwing around words that are like strong words that they don't necessarily understand the meaning and the implication of. Like exactly like you said, people say I'm addicted to the gym. It's like, yeah, you're not addicted to the gym. You just really like going to the gym, and
Yeah.
those are very different things. And they don't. It's probably because they don't know better, right? And thankfully, thank God for them that they don't. But I'm sure it feels like a bit of not the greatest feeling when people like yourself and other people who have gone through addictions or are currently going through addictions hear those things. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you cleared that up for us.
Yeah. No worries. It's almost like, it's silly to say, but it's kind of like almost like stolen valor.
Mm.
Like if you get over an addiction, that is very impressive, and it's very, very hard to do. And if you throw around addiction to candy and donuts and gym, it's not, it takes away from people's actual struggle to get over a real addiction. So
Right.
yeah, you're right. It can be a little bit annoying.
How do addictions typically start? And of course, there's many ways where this happens, and you can kind of weave in your story here if it helps paint the picture. But are there signs and signals that you can think of for yourself or for others, kind of looking back before an addiction started? It's like, oh, he was trending down the path. And I don't even know if that question makes sense to ask, but are there ways that people can identify that, hey, maybe I or a friend or family member is kind of starting to get themselves down this path, and we can kind of steer them away before it becomes a full blown addiction? Is that
Yeah,
something that kind of makes sense? Or
totally makes sense. And
yeah, okay.
fantastic question. Um, Obsessive compulsive tendencies are a big red flag. So on top of that, it's, when you're a kid, for me, for example, I couldn't just have 4 chips. I needed the whole bag. So if the bag was this big, I would have that many chips. If the bag was this big, I would have that many chips. I couldn't just have a few. That sounds silly, but it's such a red flag, because there's kids that can, the marshmallow test,
Mm,
right? Men like me fail the marshmallow test. So for people who don't know, you go to your kids and you say, you can have this marshmallow right now, but if you wait half an hour, you can have 2. Men like me will just take the one, and then we'll try to manipulate our way into having that second one. Uh, People who don't have the predisposition for addiction, for example, can pass the marshmallow test, no problem. Um, so it's things like that, not being able to not have all of whatever is in front of you. That's one of them. And then, of course, trying to self-medicate. So, if you're anxious or if you're upset, like using something that soothes you rather, and using that quite often, that's definitely a red flag as well. So a very popular one is video games. Like you get to just escape and go into this video game realm, and you're not facing real life. So as a kid, junior high, high school, let's say, if you have an assignment due and you know it's due tomorrow, but you still play video games till midnight anyways, we could be looking at a little bit of ADHD, but we could also be looking at some sort of addiction where it's like, this is escapism. That's kind of how it starts. It's like looking at escapism, looking at, I need to soothe myself to get away from this, or this thing makes me feel good. I want to make me feel great all the time.
mm,
So those are kind of some red flags. So addiction starts very subtly. For me, it started with alcohol. Everyone throws around gateway drug, and they think it's they think it's weed and cannabis, but not in my opinion. In my opinion, it's alcohol. Alcohol is just like a very well packaged poison, and it's socially acceptable. And not only that, it's it's expected. If you go to a Stag or a Oilers game or any sort of NHL, pretty much anywhere, do you want to drink? They don't mean cranberry juice. They mean beer. They mean alcohol. Like, it's expected of you. So, starting off getting drunk in grade 9, grade 10, whatever, that's kind of where it starts. And it starts off subtly, and it starts off expected, and it's a societal norm. Everyone blacks out on the weekend. It's just what everyone does. But it kind of turns into, if you have 10 friends, maybe like 5 of them don't need to get that far after a couple of years of binging. They're like, I don't really like these hangovers. I don't really like this. I don't like who I am when I'm wasted. But men like me, they just continue it and start surrounding themselves with men and girls that make that the norm. And then it's not weird. And then now you're on the path. You're on the path to actual addiction. And it seems silly because, that's what you do when you're in your 20s. You clock out on Friday afternoon, you go get some beers with the boys, and you blink and it's Sunday, and you got shit faced on Friday, you got shit faced on Saturday, and you text each other about crazy stories, and then Monday's around again. So that's that sets the groundwork, the foundation for going further down the path of addiction. However, addiction itself is hereditary. It is a disease. I know people don't like to hear that because the empathy reserved for disease is mostly for, leukemia and cancers and things like that. But addiction in itself is a disease. But what I say is addiction is a disease, using is a choice. So the more you use, the more you're going to invoke that disease of addiction. And then, before you know it, you're in the path of no return. And I use that because everyone can get clean. Every single person in the world can get clean. But you blink and you're down that path.
Do you think that, and this is probably more relevant for Canada and the states, which I don't know which specific states off the top of my head, where marijuana is legalized federally here in Canada, do you think that we're going to see a shift towards marijuana being more of that classic gateway drug, like in your description of it, versus alcohol? And I don't know this because I'm not in high school, but by all reports and stuff, like younger people are drinking less than before, and I don't know how true that is or not, but assuming it is, do you see marijuana doing that, playing that role? And I guess maybe what I'm more asking is the role more that it's socially acceptable rather than that there's something different about alcohol versus some other kind of gateway, quote unquote, drugs. It's just the social acceptability of it that leads it into being, worse and worse.
Yeah, I don't think that. Let me think about that for a sec. I don't believe that it's going to be the be all end all of gateway drugs, cannabis, even though it is more socially acceptable, because, part of the lure of cannabis when I was growing up was that it was illegal, and it's kind of a badass thing to do. And it's almost like they call your bluff when they make it legal. It's like, this isn't that cool anymore, So that's kind of part of it. And yeah, people are definitely drinking way less and less. I have plenty of friends and people who have gone through my program as well that own bars and restaurants, and it's definitely trending downwards. The alcohol, that is. The thing with cannabis is it gets you comfortable with being high. So in my opinion, if you have the predisposition for addiction, you're going to have it in any way it manifests. So it could be porn, it could be cannabis, it could be painkillers, it could be whatever it is. But the point is, when you get high, you get comfortable with that, and then you want more. Inherently, you want more. So it doesn't matter really what it is. Weed to me is, it does ruin some people's lives because they have, OCD with it or something, for example. But for the most part, it's not a danger to yourself or danger to others type drug like the way alcohol is, or cocaine or amphetamines. So I doubt the numbers. I haven't looked this up, but I would doubt the numbers have fluctuated. It's certainly easier to get for sure, but it's not going to give you the results that alcohol does, where it lowers your inhibition and then also makes you violent. Like, you're not going to, you never hear of some guy that beat the shit out of his wife because he was too baked. He probably just made her muffins and made love to her or something like that.
Right.
It's not a big deal like that. But yeah, point being, if something's going to change your state, your mental state, and you're an addict, you're going to want it. You're going to want to elevate that. So they'll find other means of it. Yeah.
So what typically happens in a situation, and again, lots of possibilities and things here, but someone who maybe has some type of obsessive compulsive tendencies as a kid or as a teenager, starts drinking with their friends and kind of does the same stuff that everyone else does. How do we get from that to a full-blown addiction? Is there typically some major life event that spirals things downwards? Or is it just a continuation of this social isolation amongst other people, and like the circle keeps getting smaller towards people that are continuing to engage in those behaviors? How do we, I mean, not that anyone wants to get there, but how does that happen?
Typically there's trauma involved, and trauma looks different to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Right. So like some rich kid in the suburbs, their dad might take their Beamer away, and that's like the worst thing ever, you know, and somebody who's in a place of poverty or something like that, that's like, you have a Beamer? Like you have a car? Like, what are you talking about? Right. The thing is, when you start using and then you start using more and more and your circle gets smaller, the consequences of your actions, so using and not going to work now, and then isolating, and then like now you're not going to work, so you don't have money, and now the bank is sending you letters like, hey, you're going to default, you're defaulting on your mortgage, or the landlord is telling you, if you miss rent one more time, I'm going to kick you out. Using will inherently, as you go down the line, will start to create more and more trauma that you would love to escape from, right? So some people will say, hey, I can't fucking do this anymore. I just defaulted on my mortgage, or I just had the inability to pay rent because I used cocaine or something I had to buy. I'm going to get my shit together. And that's great. Those people to me are aliens. that is a discipline that addicts, it's, you know, addiction has nothing to do with discipline really, but it's more so, seeing where you're going and taking action, right?
It's almost like, just if I can interject, it sounds, based on what you're saying, that you would almost not describe that person as like someone who really has those addictive tendencies. It's kind of like someone who just like fucked up a couple times and they have like a little bit of a wake up call, and then they're like, okay, I'm done with this, and then they can just stop the next day and like move on with their life. Versus someone who is going down the full blown addict route is like, that's not going to happen. The one missed mortgage payment or the one letter from their boss or whatever it is not enough to be like, okay, I need to stop this, and I can do it today.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Exactly right. That right there is perfect. Like that person that has that realization, that's not an addict. Right. So,
yeah.
But yeah, you keep going more and more down the line. You're going to start screwing up more and more, and that's going to create trauma. Like you're going to have friction at work, friction with your girlfriend, friction with your husband, friction with your family. And the more and more you feed the disease, the more and more the disease wants to live. So it will isolate you. It'll help you to make those decisions that are the wrong ones, so that it keeps you scared and alone. And then that addiction can really feed, right? You've heard the two wolves. I call it the beast, the good beast and the bad beast. You can't kill one or the other. You can only feed one and starve the other. And as you go down the line, you keep giving like T-bone steaks to the bad beast. And before you know it, you're fighting prime Mike Tyson in your head. Good luck with that, right? The bad beast is a prime 1990 Mike Tyson who wants to kill you. And that's a hard battle, man. That's definitely a hard battle. So that's how it goes. It just, the more you use, the more consequences you're going to have to face. And whether you face them or not is kind of where you can show me where you're an addict or not. And if you don't face them and you run away from them, you get more consequences, therefore more trauma, therefore more usage.
How difficult is it to realize that you are on this path? I would imagine that not for everyone, but for a number of people, there will be others in their life, family members, friends, whoever, who might say, hey, man, maybe you should clean this up. Like, maybe we should try this. Maybe we should, maybe you should stop doing that. They may not know how to help or what's going on, but they may just give you a pat on the back and say, hey, like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? You should stop this, whatever. And if you're going to go down if it's going to happen, then it's going to happen. And obviously those things get probably not necessarily ignored, but pushed aside to a degree. And so how conscious were you maybe, and how conscious are people of the fact that they're heading down this route?
It all depends on your level of self-awareness. In my program, for example, there's plenty of men, almost all of them have the victim mentality type thing where I'm using because my family member died, or I'm using because, this happened to me at work, or whatever. If you dissect it far enough, you'll see that, obviously besides the deaths, of course, but, problems at work, problems with relationships, things like that, that is almost always their fault. My wife is super mad at me because I keep getting drunk on Thursdays with the boys. Well, dude, obviously, so your level of self-awareness will tell you if you're able to distinguish if you have an addiction or not. So having those, like, looking in the mirror of accountability is really important. But if you have a high level of self-awareness, you can understand and just say, like, hey, like, I know I'm going the wrong way. But oftentimes the addiction is so strong, or the predisposition for addiction is so strong that you know it, but you ignore it, or you know it, but you feel like there's nothing you can do about it. Like, fuck. It's like kind of when you're driving in the winter and you're sliding on ice and you got like 50 feet of ice and you're sliding, by your speed if you're going to hit the wall or not, but there's nothing you can do. You're like, I'm going to hit this fucking wall, and all I can do is really brace for it. That's kind of it. Men like me who went super far, like into homelessness, we see it coming, but we kind of just accept our fate, which is a bad attitude, but we just do it. And I don't know if that's the bad beast just whispering in your ear, just like, hey man, you're going to go down this road, but we're going to have a fucking crazy story to tell, or we're going to have a good time. People who are a little bit, under self-aware, for example, they think that they can, maybe they're a little too optimistic even. They think that I'll be able to steer this ship. It's always tomorrow. I'll do it later. I'll do it after. Oftentimes you get these milestones. I'll do it after New Year's Eve. I'll do it after my stag. I'll do it after my birthday. I'll do it after Halloween, company party, whatever. And there's a million excuses to keep going. And what these guys will do is just keep moving the goalpost, and then before they know it, they're losing their house, or they're losing their wife or girlfriend or whatever, and they get mad because it's like, what happened? I blinked and it was gone, So
it sounds to me like the marshmallow test that you referenced earlier is a perfect kind of analogy for this, because I can see how someone can understand that, like, hey, these past decisions I haven't made haven't been great, or I'm heading down this path. But if you only think of things one thing at a time, and you also believe that, like, I'll just do this and then I'll figure out the next thing. Like, I can go out tonight and get hammered or get high or get whatever, and I'll figure out how to pay my mortgage tomorrow. Like, that's a tomorrow problem. I'll figure that out. I'll get some money to, I've got money to buy drugs tonight, and I'll get money tomorrow to pay off the mortgage or whatever. And you don't actually know how you're going to do that, but for whatever reason, you have this belief that, like, hey, I'll just figure it out. And I think sometimes it probably even works out. Sometimes maybe you do find a way to pay the mortgage, and so you get away with it a couple times, and then it makes it okay. And I see this, I'm struggling to think of an exact example, but in fitness, where it's like, this is maybe not a perfect example, but it's like someone who lost weight without counting their macros thinks that, I never need to do that because I got away with it last time. I ate pizza every single day on my diet and I lost weight. It's like, yeah, well, it worked, but that doesn't mean it was a good strategy. And so maybe the same thing might be true in addiction, where it's like, hey, you can get away with things for a little bit, and maybe you don't get fired for 6 months or for a year, and your boss is lenient or whatever it is, but then eventually it all kind of comes crashing down, right?
Yeah, exactly. The people fail to have the sustainability talk with themselves. Like, am I getting lucky? Did my boss not notice? Did my trainer not see my numbers properly? Did I accidentally go into a calorie deficit because I fell asleep at 7 p.m.? Like, those are things that are not long-term ways to think. And addiction is the same thing. Men like me will toe the line until it's way too late. Like I got away with XYZ with my wife. I got away with XYZ with my husband. I got away with, I could call in sick, every third Monday, and they don't really care that much. But then if you start using more, now it's every Monday,
Right.
So it's funny that attitude is detrimental, but it's also the exact attitude you need for sobriety. One day at a time. It's like sometimes you have to go 1 hour, 1 minute at a time, right? So it's like it's just this funny paradox that you have to consider, which is it's odd, but going down the bad path is you cannot have that day by day. Like I'll figure this out. I'll talk about this lie, and no one has a good enough memory to be a good liar, so it'll all catch up to you. Right. And that includes to yourself. If you keep lying to yourself, eventually you're going to be like, if somebody's like, I'm a jacked guy with a 6-pack and stuff and they're overweight, like you can say that all you want, but one day you're going to be like, I'm a fucking liar, man. I'm like, what am I doing here? So it's just unsustainable.
Yeah. It'll for sure eventually catch up with you.
Yeah.
How do we then, what's the first step to sobriety? You hear the story of you got to hit rock bottom before you can kind of come up, and I don't know how true that is or not. Like I guess when you start, on your path to sobriety, that was the bottom just by definition, right?
Yeah.
And people's bottoms can be very, very different. But how does this typically happen? It's by your description of things. It sounds like once you're on that path, man, like I don't know how you just wake up one day and decide like, hey, today's the day. There's got to be an equally traumatic, maybe positive trauma. I don't know if that's a term, but positive trauma event that like snaps you out of it somehow. But how does this happen?
Yeah, you definitely, rock bottom is very, very important. And that's rock bottom for whatever that looks like for you. Right. Like for me, for example, I had to become homeless. I had to lose everything to realize that I was going too far, and I struggle with that at times because I'm like, did I actually really have to do that? Like maybe somebody could have intervened and said like, hey, you're going this way, but
sure,
hindsight's 2020. I don't know if I would listen. I'm not sure who would have that conversation with me to be like, all right, you can't go this way. Like maybe my Nona and Nona or something like that, but I don't know. It's hard to say. So my whole thing is make your rock bottom as shallow as possible. Like you don't have to lose it all. Like try to get to the point where you need to realize like, hey, I'm powerless over this. So that's step 1, right? In the 12 steps, for example, realize that you are powerless over this and it controls you. Right. The second you realize that, then now you can manage things. Now you can be like, okay, I accept it. I'm fucked up here. Like now you're going to start looking for ways to get better. Right. So if you can do that simultaneously with hitting rock bottom, that's best. That's good. But best case scenario is realizing you don't have any power over this before you start losing your house, before you start losing your job. Easy to say, hard to do because addicts will, again, we will push it to the limits. The cup analogy, where you have a cup and you have rocks inside and the guy goes, is this full? Mm-hmm. And people say yes. And then he puts smaller rocks and then he puts, so on and so forth. Addicts will get to the point where you put sand in there, and then you put water and it's right at the very top. And then your last drop, it overflows. You're like, okay, I'm ready now. Right. You have to speed that process up so you don't die. But that's the way to do it is to understand that you're powerless over it. Talk to somebody about it and make your rock bottom not, 20,000 feet deep. Like go as shallow as you can and just say like, hey, if I continue this path, this is what's going to happen. Right. To compare it to the fitness world, if I'm in a calorie surplus, I'm going to gain weight. So let's go into a negative here. And I'm sure you struggle with that with your clients all the time.
Sure.
It
name of the game.
It's simple, but it's hard. Yeah. Right. You can write it down in the theory. It's simple, but it's hard to do.
Yeah. And it sounds like that as well. I mean, like I'm as you're saying these things, it all logically makes sense to me. I struggle with thinking about if someone is in the throes of addiction right now, like are they listening to something like this? Like I feel like if someone's listening to something like this, or even found someone like yourself online or whatever, you've already kind of turned the corner, and maybe you'll go back
Yeah.
down and maybe not, but like you've at least had the realization that like, hey, I am addicted. You've admitted that. And maybe
Yeah.
you haven't hit your rock bottom, you haven't lost all the stuff and it hasn't been powerful enough, but you've maybe realized that, versus someone who's like right in the thick of it. Like there's no way. There's no way they would be able to listen to something like this and not realize that hey, like this is me. Like I'm doing this, right?
Yeah, exactly. A really good sign is when you start Googling, am I an alcoholic? Am I an addict? Like that's a really good sign of
Mm.
you are, you know,
Right.
like that's a giant red flag. Are the people around me saying like, hey, you need to dial it back, you know? And there's plenty of people who aren't addicts that need to dial it back, you know,
Sure.
the guy who drinks once a month and goes to a game and gets fucked up or something like that. Like that guy doesn't need to drink 20 beers, you know, like that's totally normal for the wife to be like, can you not come home pissed tonight? Like, that'd be great. Like, come on, you could be drunk or tipsy, but like, can you know what I look like and know my name and be able to walk? Like, that's perfect. I'm not talking about guys like that. But when the wife is like, hey, you're drinking like 3 times a week and getting drunk, I'm getting a little bit worried about you. That's not coming from a place of controlling. She's not nagging you. That's, that's somebody who cares. And that's somebody that's saying like, hey, you need to take a good look at yourself, you know? And like those types of signs are that's a good sign of like, hey, maybe I need to get my shit together,
Right.
you know? So you're on your way to step one at that point.
For people listening, and for myself even, if there are people in our life who we see going down that road, you know, the wife whose husband's drinking a couple times a week and it wasn't a problem, but it's starting to kind of become an issue. How do you approach that person in a way that's not like so combative? I got to imagine you saying like, hey, you fucking loser, like stop fucking doing that, you're a piece of shit. Like that's not good. Right?
No. Yeah.
Obviously. So, but somewhere between that and doing nothing is the answer. So how do we approach these people to just start to like, hey, maybe we should, start to do something about this? How does that work?
Just like you said, non-combative, right? It's like delivery is everything. There's less than 1% of people that are like the Goggins. Like, hey, you're a fat piece of shit. You need to not be. Yeah. Roger that. Let's go. Like that barely anyone's like that. And it's way too risky to try to think that somebody is like that, you know? Uh, so the best way to do it is the shit sandwich analogy, right? Give them something positive. Hey, I love you very much. You're my whole world. You're the protector and provider for my kids and our kids. Um, but you're drinking too much and I worry about you. And not only that, it's affecting our marriage. It's affecting your workplace. It's affecting everything. And don't ever lie about that or inflate it, you know, because then they'll just right away just be like, no, you're going overboard. And that is not where I'm at. I'm not a drug addict. Like I'm not like a homeless person. So don't inflate it. Just tell the truth. You've been late for work 4 times. You know, you're falling asleep super early because you're hungover. You miss kids practice, like things that are actually true, and then follow it up with the good again. I know your potential. You're way better than this. This, you know, I want you to succeed, and I want us to succeed. So, like, can we please do something together to help out? And you know, having that approach that works 9 times out of 10. The empathetic approach is the best. If you don't fucking quit, I'm going to leave. That works, but it works way down the line. You know, if you try this shit sandwich 4 or 5 times, then it's like, okay, you have to give them some hard ultimatums. And ultimatums are really important for, you know, for people who aren't sociopaths, for example, like a dad who actually loves his kids and loves his wife. Like, hey, you are not allowed to drive with the kids until I know that you have quit alcohol. You know what I mean? Because I think you're going to drink and drive one day because you don't see that this is a bad example, or you don't actually think that you are tipsy. And then you're going to take my son to practice? No way. So that's kind of the best way to do it. The hard nosed stuff is way later down the line. The tricky part is when you are the help, when you're the loved ones to somebody who's going down this road, it's very difficult because you're going to get lied to. They're going to try to manipulate you. And it sucks to you have to understand that you have to differentiate yourself and compartmentalize. This isn't actually my husband talking to me. This is like the devil. He's hijacked his brain a little bit, and he isn't trying to lie to me like that. Like, this is the bad beast just whispering in his ear. And that's not to, dissolve consequence from him. That's just an actual fact. Like, that is just what men like me in active addiction would do. So they're in for it. And I feel for the help. I feel for the loved ones, because it is a hard journey, and you're going to get lied to. And, no one wants to feel like the police to their significant other. No one wants to question them and stuff like that, but it's just part of the gig. And if you really do love that person, you have to put up with it. Right. And I promise you, when an addict gets sober, they're some of the best human beings ever. I've seen hell, man. I've seen it. I've lived it. It sucks. My empathy knob gets dialed up at all times. It helped. Had I not been an addict, my son has never seen me drunk or used, thank God. But had I not had those lessons, I wouldn't have been the most, the father I am today. So, my message to everyone that is going through that, where their husband is trying to get sober, they want to go talk to them about getting sober, is stick it out. As long as they're not abusive, stick it out, and it's awesome after. Yeah. So, but yeah, back to your question, the shit sandwich analogy is the best way to do it.
It makes sense that, the hard no stuff obviously doesn't work. Same, exact analogy in fitness. You can't just tell people they're fat and like, oh yeah, thanks, I didn't know that, I'll just fix everything now. Like, doesn't
Yeah.
work. But in the addiction analogy, it's that can kind of be like the rock bottom. The wife says like, hey, I'm leaving if you don't stop this like tomorrow. If you don't start doing something about this tomorrow, like that's your rock bottom, right? That's losing your house. That's that's losing everything.
Yeah.
So I get obviously that that should not be step number one. Bridging fitness and addiction here. Oftentimes when people, some of the hardest people to help with fitness and weight loss specifically are the people in your own family and the people that you live with, right? You can't just be like, hey, I think you should lose weight and like do a diet. And really the best way to do it is like just to lead by example, so to speak. So, you make sure you're going to the gym, make sure that they see you doing that, make sure that they see you eating healthy, and kind of like you hope that they just by osmosis start doing some of the same things as well, unless it's a real problem, then you got to take it to another level. With addiction, I'm not sure that tactic would really play out, because only one of the people is addicted. So it's not like I can just stop drinking because I wasn't already drinking. So then how do we actually guide this person towards starting to get help? Also keeping in mind, you work with men only. Men are pretty stubborn and don't like to ask for help and don't like to feel like they need someone else. So especially from your wife or any, important women in your life, it's hard to be like, hey, you need help here from someone else, and you can't just, grit your teeth and get through this. How do we start to guide these people towards actually seeking out some help? And what are some of those, things? I know you referenced some of the free resources and things that are available. But how do we get people there?
Delivery again. Delivery is everything. So, saying, just logically saying that, if you're the wife, for example, and you have no predisposition for addiction, or you don't know what it looks like, you've never had a dad or something that had this problem, the best way to do this is to be like, listen, I'm not a professional and you're not a professional, but we need to get professional help. I like to use a lot of analogies. Like, if there's something wrong with your electrical in your house, something wrong with your plumbing or your HVAC, you're going to call the tin basher, the plumber, and the electrician. And everyone knows that. That's like what you do, right? Mm-hmm. So being able to, sync that together and reference addiction that way is really important. And again, with delivery, it's important to be like, I want to try AA. Let's try it together. And he's going to say things like, that's for people that are, way down the line and they lost their legs because they put needles in it so many times, or, they've been drinking for 20 years or whatever. That's not always the case. Those people are certainly in the room. The first AA meeting I ever went to, there was a girl with one leg. She got it amputated from, gangrene from bad needles, and she had HIV and, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, fuck, I'm not like that. And it turned me off. I'm like, this is not for me. This is, but what you have to realize is those people started exactly like how you did. Almost always. They're just further down the road, but you're on that road. And you have to nip it in the ass now. So the delivery is everything. Just being like, I'm not a professional. You're not a professional. We need to get professional help. So AA is everywhere. NA is everywhere. CA is everywhere. And if it's not in your town, which I doubt, it's online. So you can do that. Of course, there's my program too, which is it's a different approach because it's one-on-one. You're dealing with another man and another man who's been through it. Like I was addicted. I have huge sober time now. I was homeless. I did like 4 grams of cocaine a day. I told every single lie. I drank all the alcohol, like I've been there, done that, so that's why a lot of men like to turn to me and AA, because of course everyone in that room has been in the same position. As opposed to a psychologist, for example, who got straight A's and got their masters and, of course they're a great resource, but for addiction in particular, it's better, in my opinion, of course, to talk to someone who's actually been there and done that, right? I don't know where you're at with this, but it's the fat trainer thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, besides power lifters, you want someone who walks the walk and talks the talk, right?
Yeah.
But I'm kind of getting into the weeds off of your question there, but,
That's cool.
It's definitely delivery. It's definitely like, hey, we need to get some professional help. And here's why we need to get professional help. You told me 100 times that you're going to quit. You told me 100 times you're going to scale back, but you haven't been able to do it. And that's fine. It just only means we need professional help. You tried to you tried to fix the faucet like 12 times and you just don't know how to do it. And that's okay. There's a guy who went to trade school and does this for a living. He's going to come here and fix it in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing with addiction. So, just having that empathetic delivery of like, let's go get some help. Right. And then you escalate from there.
I think that knowing, that you're working with people who have been through it is arguably more important in addiction than it is in fitness, for sure. Like I think the fat trainer would be a lot more effective relative to someone who's never been through addiction and just the psychologist, straight A's, suburban Beamer neighborhood, who has no idea, right? Because like I can talk to you and learn the steps of your system and then go and parrot them. I have no idea what that feels like emotionally and actually in my life. And like it's not, it is similar to fitness in that it's not rocket science to say that drugs are bad for you and you should not do them. Like, I think everyone knows that, you know what I mean? Everyone knows that, you should exercise and eat healthy foods relatively. Like, this is not rocket science. It's understanding the emotions behind it, understanding the motivations behind it, and how to support that person through it, and anticipating what might happen to them. Like, being 1 or 2 steps ahead. Like, hey, you might come up against these roadblocks down the line. Here's how we're going to game plan for that. And same in fitness. It's like, hey, when you're traveling, such and such might happen. Maybe bring a protein shake with you. Maybe like whatever, do some prep stuff or Uber groceries to the hotel. Little things like that just like someone who's been there can tell you that. Someone who's never been there isn't going to think of that until after the fact. And then in the case of addiction, like after the fact might be a big relapse and it might be a little bit too late. So I think you're spot on with saying that, like, hey, you really got to work with people who have really been through this, and maybe it works if you go to someone who hasn't, but I got to imagine the success rate is quite low because it's not a mechanical technical thing that we're working on here. It's like it's the human body and the human brain more specifically, and there's not really a clear instruction manual for that.
Exactly, man. A fisherman always sees another fisherman from afar, and that's what an addict needs. Someone just like them who knows the ins and outs, all the lingo, all the triggers, all the lies, Yeah. So working with a professional like myself or going to AA, NA, that's where you get better. Yeah.
Might throw you a little bit of a curveball here. Um, how, if at all, does religion play a role in overcoming addiction for yourself or for what you see in other people?
For some people, it's almost everything. And for some people, it's nothing. So it depends. A lot of people are turned off by the spiritual aspect of it. Giving yourself to God and saying like, hey, I'm going to relinquish my control and give it to you and just, follow godly routines and go to church and just understand that there is a God that's there to help you. You just have to, do his will and pray and do the best you can. Like some people are very, very turned off by that. So I'm a little bit different because I started off at the time I wasn't religious. I grew up Catholic. I'm Italian. We're all Catholic. But I grew up Catholic and I went away from the church, and it actually wasn't until I was sober that I came back to the church, to the Catholic Church. And now I would say I'm very Catholic, and I follow and I pray and I listen to the Bible every night before I go to bed. It helps. It definitely helps me stay sober, but it's one aspect of it, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's in the toolbox. Not that I'm using God as a tool, but it's just part of it. So of course I in my program, I ask right away, day one, do you believe in God? No wrong answer. And if they don't, then it's like, okay, I'm going to steer it this way. And that's completely fine. I'm the least preachy person when it comes to religion. But when somebody does believe in God, then I'm like, okay, I can use script here. I can use parables. I can, so it's helpful there. Of course, the people who don't believe in God, once in a while I ask permission and I'll say, like, this happened the other day. I'll be like, this is exactly out of the Bible. Do you mind if I just read a verse? And then they'll just be like, okay. And then I'll read it. And then they're like, damn, that's in the Bible. I'm like, yeah. They're like, okay, well, maybe I'll look into it a little bit, and that's great. But I try not to be preachy with it. But of course I'm going to say, like, God will definitely save your life. It helps me stay strong. I've seen it work I've seen God work miracles on plenty of people that I know, that you can't really explain your way out of it not being God, in my opinion. Right. Mm. So, so I guess to answer your question, it's kind of hit and miss. If someone already believes in God, then it helps them. If you can, I don't want to say coach them into believing God, but if you can kind of, show them some dots and they can connect it, that's great. But for others, they'll always be agnostic at best, and that's totally fine. But God is in my opinion, God is working through them, and He doesn't need the credit. Mm-hmm. He'll just help you in other ways, anyways, because He already loves you. So,
for sure. Yeah. I mean, starting to bring this full circle back to referencing that you're a father and that's the most important thing. It's about serving some sort of higher purpose. So maybe someone doesn't have kids and maybe they're not married and they don't have a lot of family, but God can be that higher purpose to them. And again, we don't, maybe priests might get mad at us talking about it as religion as a tool, but it kind of is the roadmap as to how to live a good life. It can hold that place for you, and you can have faith that, hey, someone's coming back. There's a greater reason to this. There's someone's going to help me. Like, it can be that last string of hope that you have, or some positivity in your life to kind of work towards. So, yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense to me, that people who are religious would gravitate towards that and use it as something to help them, and that those who aren't might learn the lessons of it. And it's like, you can attribute a bunch of like quotes in history, not necessarily religious, just in regular people. And if you don't put who said the quote, it hits a little different. And you tell someone who said the quote, it's like, oh shit, I don't agree with that anymore because I don't agree with the person rather than the idea. So yeah, man, it's good. What are some other tools similar to that you use to sort of help guys kind of get out of it?
Earning the big three. So dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins. I preach about that quite often because men like me have a different benchmark for the big three. We need more because we've abused our mind and we've abused our body for so long. Our benchmark rather for that is just higher than normal people. So we essentially were getting the big three on the cheap, meaning we didn't earn it. So of course, obviously cocaine is very expensive. It's more expensive than gold, but the point is you can just pay some money and get it.
Right.
Earning it. What I'm talking about is exercise, like getting tasks done. Right. So in my program, every single person who's able to do it, you have to do 3 sets of push-ups to failure every single day. That's how you start your day, no matter what. Even if it's chest day, doesn't matter. I don't care if you have to work out 45 minutes from now. You wake up 3 sets of push-ups to failure, because what you're doing is you're earning the big three. You're earning dopamine through your exercise. You're earning the serotonin because of the feeling of doing that, and the endorphins is because you have a job done. You've completed it, and then you're also doing it to failure because I want to see what you're made out of, and I want you to see what you're made out of. And everyone starts off, whatever, 20, whatever. And at the end of it, they're doing 50, 60 in a row, man. And people sleep on push-ups. The average weight loss in my program is 38 pounds in 90 days.
Wow.
So that is also because they're drinking quite heavily,
Sure.
right? So now you're taking out those calories. You're taking out the food that comes away. If you're drunk, you want a donair. Like, if you're drunk, you want a shitty pizza or whatever. So all that's gone, right? And then you're doing push-ups, right? The people who buy into the exercise part of the program as well, like obviously they're either losing more or gaining more depending on what their goals are with muscle and stuff. The professional athletes, they're already at like 7% body fat, so whatever. But the push-ups, that is getting your body moving. You're earning the big three, and that's something you have to do every day. I call it anchoring. You're anchoring your day in the big three. Also, you have a task in the morning. So I give you a task. It might be something like, why do you think you drink to excess? That's like the first one. And then we have a call every single night at the same time. So let's say you and I are working together, and you and I would have a call at 7 p.m. every single day. So I can hear your voice. So I know if you're drinking or not. I got a good baseline on your voice. We go over the task, so you get some more endorphins because you've completed it. And then now you learn a little bit about yourself because we debrief the task. And then there's only 2 rules in my program. Try your hardest. Don't ever fucking lie to me. At the end of that call, I ask you, did you drink alcohol or do drugs today? You have to answer that every single day. So it's just like a high level of accountability. So I for 90 days, I coach those tendencies and those habits. And then after you graduate, you keep them. You continuously anchor and earn those big three. And of course, that's just one aspect of it. There's so many aspects of remaining sober. And I tell people, like, you can bitch about it all day and cry about it. Like, why am I a guy like this? Why do I have to do these things every day? Well, you are. So too fucking bad, man. You have to do it. A diabetic has to use insulin. It is what it is. You just have to.
Why am I not 7 feet tall in the NBA? Right? I can't.
Yeah,
can't
exactly.
Change it. Just
that's literally the example I use to these people, to men like me. Why? Like, how tall are you? They're like 5'10". Why aren't you 7 feet? The fuck? Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. I love that concept of anchoring, though. And I mean, honestly, I think even outside of addiction, I think something like that, push-ups, obviously, will be partial to that, but it's a great thing, right? Gets the body moving. It sets a tone for your day. The first thing you do in the morning is push-ups instead of scrolling on your phone. Like, there's just so many good benefits that come from that. And I think even, I don't know if you've seen this, but like some like younger teenagers and stuff posting stuff about fixing their brain, like doing dopamine resets, like posting videos of like staring at a wall for an hour just to not be scrolling and stuff. And it's like that there's something to that. Like, there's something to doing stuff off your phone, doing stuff that's not like cheap dopamine, and that is anything from doom scrolling TikTok all the way up to doing drugs. Like, obviously they're different, but the principles of like trying to just like get your body right and get your mind in the right place are all there. So yeah, like a physical thing first thing in the morning just to anchor your day and set the tone for the day. That's I think that's extremely powerful for literally for everyone.
Yeah. You said something there like that they're different. It's true. They're different, but it's the same mechanism.
Hmm.
Right. Earlier in our conversation, we talked about some red flags, doom scrolling is definitely a red flag. That's escapism. You're hunting for dopamine. You're hunting for it. So that would be one of those things where I compared it to like I can't have 2 or 3 chips. I need the whole bag. I need the whole cup of candy. Right.
Right.
So nowadays kids are struggling with these supercomputers that have everything they need, or if they think they need on it. So yeah, just to tie that back, that would definitely be a red flag. And instead of getting it on the cheap, like doom scrolling, yeah, do your push-ups. They're so easy, man.
Yeah.
Even if you can only do 4, even if you can only do 1, even if you have to do, put your knees down and do the push-ups, like whatever, it is what it is. Just start off what you have to. But the point is earning those big threes through something physical. You can't outthink a thinking problem. You have to move your body, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. There's got to be something to like, the doom scrolling, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole because I can talk with this for 3 hours, but
Yeah.
like it doesn't have immediate physical negative consequences on your body. Whereas like, you go do drugs, you'll feel shitty, you'll be hungover if you're drinking, whatever, the next day. Like doom scrolling, you kind of feel like if you pay attention to it enough, you don't feel good after you do that.
Yeah.
But like the consequences are almost like not strong enough to know that it's like not good for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, so, and again, similar to alcohol, actually, like very socially acceptable. Like everyone's scrolling on their phone. So it's like, I'm just doing the same thing everyone else is doing. It's not abnormal. It's not different. I'm not getting fired from your job. And if you're getting fired from your job from doom scrolling, that's a rough one. But
That's a rough one. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how you'd even get there, but I'm sure it's happened. But the lack of physical consequences is like something that people don't realize, where it's not necessarily maybe full blown addictions. It's just like bad habits that you do.
Yeah.
And we see this with like fitness clients all the time. It's like, this thing is not detrimental, but that extra cookie you have, that one cookie is not making you gain weight, but the fact that you do it every single day over and over and over and over again, that's the thing that over time it's like, oh, how did I gain 20 pounds this year? Well, it didn't happen yesterday. It's happened the accumulation of all of these things.
Exactly right, man. Yeah.
I want to let you go and let you get out of here. Thank you very much for your time. This is very eye opening for me, and I'm sure for the listeners as well. Is there anything that you wanted to share that you felt was important that we didn't get to in this conversation?
Honestly, okay. So to the spouses out there and to the parents, your key to your kid or husband or wife not going down this trail, one of the most important things you can do is be approachable. The dad who freaks out if they do something wrong, that's not the answer, man. That's not the answer. If your kid is struggling and they've tried cocaine or they tried alcohol and they like, oh shit, like I have this addiction tendencies, you absolutely 100% need to be approachable. They can't be scared of you because they will hide it. And if they hide it, that bad beast loves that. The bad beast wants you scared and alone. So how you look at your spouse and how you look at your kids, always have that theme about, have the question in your head every day. Am I approachable today or not? Can my kids actually talk to me about everything? Can my husband or wife actually talk to me about everything? And if the answer is no, you got some work to do because they're going to hide it. And if they hide it, they'll come to you when it's really bad. Like, Dad, they took my car away. Well, what the fuck? Why did they take your car away? Well, because I'm an addict and I haven't been paying my bills. Catch it earlier. Catch it at, Dad, I went to a house party and cocaine was there and I tried it and I feel like I want more and I don't know what to do. That bad beast is really easy to beat the shit out of. But when they're in a trap house, like, good luck.
Yeah.
So
great message, man. Great message to end off on. What is your, how can people get in touch with you? And I'll get you after we do this to share some of the links to like some AA and free resources and stuff, and I can throw it all in the show notes. But how can people get in touch with you and ask you questions and join your program and stuff?
Sure. So Instagram is the easiest. I answer and read every single message. It may take me some time, but I make a point to get to everything. So that's the best way to get a hold of me. I have a link in my bio, Mr.Zorzetto on Instagram, that will bring you to my website, and we can hook up a compatibility call there. A little bit of explanation of the program is that's on there. But yeah, that's the easiest way to get to me. And again, obviously it is for money. People have an issue with people helping addicts for cash, but that is how I make a living. It is one-on-one. It's obviously my time. That said, AA and NA is free. I encourage anyone who's struggling to go there. And it's free and available, and it saves millions of people. My good friend, Brian Teddy Tarantino on Instagram, he is almost 20 years, I think, sober now. He used AA and he's never looked back. So, again, I encourage everyone to try that out. So, yeah.
I'll just defend you on that. All the resources for everything are free and available. You can learn anything you want about anything on YouTube and the rest of the internet for free. And sometimes, and I notice this for sure in fitness coaching, sometimes people need to pay for things as an added layer of accountability just to do the things. Everybody knows that they shouldn't do drugs and that they should eat healthy and they should go to the gym. And not all of us do it all the time or to the best of our ability. And so sometimes, you need that extra layer. So I think what you're doing is phenomenal. You're obviously saving lives directly and helping hundreds and thousands of others indirectly via their lives. So thank you for the work that you do, Anthony. And thank you for coming on here and sharing with us, man. I will tag you or I'll put your contact in the show notes, Mr. Zorzetto on Instagram. Yeah, man, that's that. Any last words before I close off?
No, that's it, man. I'll tell you quite honestly, you're probably one of the best podcasters I've ever worked with. Your questions were awesome, incredibly insightful, and really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, man. That means a lot. That means a lot. I appreciate it. On that note, everybody, make sure you're following Anthony and myself and the podcast. Like, share, subscribe, and share this, and send this one directly to people that you know that need help, or that they know someone else who needs help. And we'll help save lives and save people. So thank you all. Appreciate you. Go outside. Be a good person. See you next time.